The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, coming to you live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. 1-877-528-8255 is toll-free if you'd like to give us a call and speak with our guest tonight. My email address is xzone@talkstarradio.com, on MSN Messenger talkstarradio@hotmail.com, and our websites, www.xzoneradio.com and xzonetv.com. My guest this hour is Michael Levy, and he is the author of 9 inspirational books and an international radio show host himself. Michael's poetry and essays now grace many websites, newspapers, journals, magazines throughout the world. He is a prominent speaker on health maintenance, stress eradication, wealth development, authentic happiness, and inspirational poetry. His new book, Paradise Graces, A Simple Mind, is available at all good bookstores, and his website, www.pointoflife.com. And Michael, welcome to the X-Zone. How are things with you?
Thank you, Rob. Everything's great, and I appreciate you having me on your show.
That's great having you with us, Michael. Stress is a big part of everybody's life these days. And what can people do to eradicate stress?
Well, if you listen to psychologists and psychiatrists, they'll kind of teach you to manage it. Mm-hmm. But I've never been able to manage stress. I was born with weak genes, and if I had to try and manage my stress, then it would be a basket case and probably be 6 foot under the ground a long time ago. But I realized the moment I popped out the womb that I was here to enjoy my life. And I kind of figured that there's got to be a way of doing that very early on, as soon as I was able to think for myself. And my earliest realization, and this might sound strange to a lot of people, was my own stupidity. And once I understood how stupid I could be, then I could live my life without the stress of my own cleverness interfering with my life. So, in other words, as I was getting educated and learning how to kind of deal in this world, both financially and on health levels and on an enjoyment level, mm-hmm. my cleverness didn't rule my mind. It wasn't going to do things for me without me questioning it. Because if I just allowed myself to say, I think I know something now, and I'll follow that route, well, whenever I did that, I fell into a big hole. So I thought, well, if I'm got to follow this kind of cleverness, then I'm going to keep falling in these holes. So it would be dumb to do that. And I know that it would be dumb just to live within the fields of what everybody else is telling me that I need to do, because, like me, they'll be doing the same kind of things. So I won't follow that path. So slowly but surely, without even knowing about it, and without even analyzing it in those days, I just lived in a joyful state of mind. And whenever stress came along, I managed to cut back and not follow that route, not go down it, stop it in its tracks, in other words. Now, sometimes it's not always easy to do that. And obviously, when certain things come along, like the death of my mother when I was 23 years of age, and she died of stress and illnesses caused by stress, I had to find a way to cope with that. But after 2 days, something came over me to say, you know what, she's not gone anywhere, the love is still with you.
Michael, stand by. You and I have to take a commercial break. Michael Levy is our special guest. His website is www.pointoflife.com. Michael and I return on the other side of this 2-minute commercial break as the X Zone continues live and around the world from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Take a step back in time and discover old Florida cuisine at Marsh Landing Restaurant in Fellsmere. Enjoy delicacies such as frog legs, gator tail, catfish, and swamp cabbage, or enjoy the more traditional cuisine like hand-cut Angus steaks, ribs, and seafood. Join us for breakfast with a southern flair featuring sweet potato pancakes, biscuits, and gravy, and much more. Planning a party? Marsh Landing's private dining room can accommodate groups from 8 to 80 people. While you're visiting, enjoy the historic pictures, artifacts, and stories that line the walls. Marsh Landing is truly a unique experience. Marsh Landing Restaurant, 44 North Broadway in historic Fellsmere, or visit marshlandingrestaurant.com. Marsh Landing, old Florida cuisine at its best. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone broadcast network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
This is Johanna Carroll, host of Dialogue with Divinity on the X Zone Broadcast Network. While walking along Kaanapali Beach in Maui this past year, I kept discovering all these shells and coral in the shape of hearts. My dialogue with Divinity was very simple. Do you want me to do a retreat to heal people's hearts in Maui next year? And of course, the answer was yes. As a master spiritual teacher, I am offering you a neat retreat called Rise, May 8th through the 12th, 2017, and the chance of a lifetime to rest at a 5-star resort for 5 days and experience a spiritual renewal of your heart and soul. Kaanapali is one of the top 5 beaches in the world. This stunning resort has undergone a $40 million renovation. I walked the entire property, checked out the room choices on your behalf, and I must say it is stunning. Our conference room faces the ocean with sliding glass doors. Maui is known as Mother Maui because it is a soft, gentle, healing energy. In the embrace of Mother Maui, you will feel yourself rising from the limitations of an ordinary life to an extraordinary journey of peace, bliss, and harmony. A greater sense of clarity. Our Rise retreat ignites renewal in the sacred elements of air, water, earth, fire, and wind. There's plenty of free time to enjoy all that Maui has to offer. A small deposit is required now to reserve your space, as this retreat, it will sell out. For more details, please go to johannacarroll.com and register today. Aloha, and I'll see you in mystical Maui.
Michael Levy is my special guest this hour, and his website is www.pointoflife.com. How can we start to enjoy life, Mike? How do we condition ourselves? In today's society, we talked about stress, but with all the negativity that is surrounding people, their jobs, the financial problems at home, the children not being able to wear the $90 or $150 pair of running shoes these days, and the amount of pressure, not only stress that this is putting on mom and dad, and then the problems that are creating the problem within the marriage between mom and dad. How can we kind of learn to enjoy our life with all this around us all the time now?
Well, it's a good question, and as I was saying, it's just as we went into break about dealing with. But my biggest tragedy was the death of my mother when I was 23.
Yes.
And we all have to face certain things like that, unavoidable situations in life where you just can't run away from it, or you can't say, I'm going to take another path. Well, what we've got to learn, first of all, is all the things that we mustn't be, because what we must be is indefinable. It's not something that you can actually put into intellectual thought, because if we try and intellectualize something and say, I've got it, you go to some guru or somebody who's trying to teach you to think positive, well, it's nigh on impossible if you're living with an identity and you're bombarded by all the modern day distractions and stresses. You're just going to succumb to them. So we have to analyze for ourselves all the things that we mustn't be. And people say, well, why are you kind of focusing on the negative? Well, it's all the negative things that are pulling us down. And if we succumb to that, that's all being fed to us through our intellectual way of thinking. However, the good news for us all is we're all born with something else, and it's called intelligence. And that intelligence can guide us through life in a carefree, happy state of mind by understanding who we actually are in an undefinable way.
All right, then who are we, Mike?
Well, like I said, we're not the ego, we're not the personality, we're not the name that people call us. Mm-hmm. Those are the identities that we've been given from birth, and those are the things that we'll answer to. And in most people's lives, that's all they'll ever know. But if you start to step back from that identity, and this is something that takes a little bit of time and a little bit of understanding, because it starts to get confusing. And if we allow that entity, and it's a very clever entity, once it gets into our minds, this identity of who we think we are, in the physical sense, mm-hmm. then it's kind of ruling our life from that viewpoint. So we've got a perspective, we've got an idea, we've got a thought and a suggestion that keeps coming through our intellectual way of thinking, our reasoning and logic.
So this means that the programming that we've received on a sociological plane is wrong. It's
perceptions, ideas, mm-hmm. thoughts and suggestions, which
right.
spells out pits. So we're living in the pits of hell. We're making our own hell through the perceptions, ideas, thoughts and suggestions that we've built for ourselves and mostly been handed by other people.
Right.
Whether it be some text that we believe in, and the word belief is cut up with L-I-E in the middle. So believe or belief has three little letters in the middle, L-I-E. And when you kind of buy into a belief system, then is it lying to us or is it truthful? Well, we really don't know. But what we do know is that there's a force inside us that can discern, which is it's got what I call a great crap detector. It can discern truth from falsehoods. And once you start to be able to do that, you start to detach from the way we've been conditioned to think, and we start to use that identity in a different way. So in other words, we're not going to lose the memories, mm-hmm. we're not going to lose our ego or our personality, but however, we allow that ego to enjoy itself by being a server rather than it mastering our own mind. And that way, we're no longer a slave to our own ideas, to our own perceptions, ideas, thoughts and suggestions. We turn it around and we use that knowledge so that we can help the betterment of humanity. We can help other people in many different ways. By extracting our own joy and our own happiness, we can pass that along. But if we just live with the negativity of who we think we are and get pulled down mm-hmm. and get swamped by everything that's around us, then we're going to pass that negativity back to people too.
I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you then, if all this programming that we've received is working against us, and there is a way to reset the programming into a way that we can live happily, why do we really exist?
Well, we exist to live in a state of joy and to enjoy our existence on Earth. I mean, the animal kingdom all know that. A bird that's in flight, a fish that's swimming in the oceans, doesn't question its existence, it just lives it. We human beings have got something a little bit different. We've got, in our conscious mind, we've got reason and logic. So we try and use that reason and logic to try and explain to us what we're doing on Earth, and we complicate things.
Oh, boy, do we ever.
Yeah, but the more we complicate it, the more we're piling up all this knowledge, and that knowledge is swamping us. So paradise does grace a simple mind. If you want to find paradise, and there's a simple analogy if you want to take the Bible, and whether you believe in the Bible or not, there's a good story right at the beginning in Genesis of Adam and Eve living in the Garden of Eden.
Yes.
And what happens to them? They're living with no clothes on. The nudity is pure. They have pure intellects. Their intellect is pure. They're enjoying paradise. But then the serpent comes along, which is another analogy for the devil, which the devil is another analogy for the ego and the distractions that ego can bring. And what does it say to them? It says, there's a tree over there that would have the most beautiful fruit. You want to taste it? Well, the maker who made Adam and Eve says, well, don't eat from that tree, because if you do, you'll get yourself pushed out of paradise. Well, this ego says, well, no, I know better than God, I know better than my maker, I want that knowledge. So it goes and bites from the fruit, and once it tastes that fruit, it tastes real good. But then that knowledge now starts to play on the mind, and the mind fills up with all this garbage. And once it fills up with the garbage, we're no longer living in paradise, we're living in something else. And that something else is the world we've created around us today. Now, you've only got to look at the headlines in all the newspapers, the Madoffs of this world, there's a guy who, his ego was totally out of control, and he probably doesn't even know wrong from right. And for 20-odd years, he took in a lot of very clever people. Yeah. Those people weren't idiots who he took in. They were all clever people who earned a lot of money. And they gave him that money to invest for them. And they didn't question it. So if we don't question things that are going on all around us, then we are going to fall into the same similar traps. It might not be we're going to lose millions of dollars, because we might have that. But we're going to lose our happiness. Another case that's happened recently is with Michael Jackson. It's all over the news now. And there's a brilliant artist, somebody who has got a God-given talent, yet was unable to live a true joyful life himself and had to look for the substitutes with drugs or whatever. So the media is telling us at this moment in time. Facts will come out within the next few weeks. And to find why that guy had to have such an early demise when his talent could have been here for the next 20 years and people would have enjoyed his great music and one of the greatest artists of all time. But again, it's another case of being lost in an ego that gets out of control, and it takes the person out of paradise. And what Michael was looking for all his life was his lost paradise.
Yeah, that's right. He was looking
for happiness. The childhood that he lost.
I've got a saying, Michael, that life is simple, we complicate it.
That's a great saying. The more simple that you can live things. Now, it's not always easy when you've got a job to do.
No.
And you've got a boss to answer to at work, or you've got a business to run, or you've got an economy again that was pulled down by more people that went to Harvard and went to Wharton and all the great universities, and they learned how to cheat people properly. And they brought out all these derivatives and all these financial instruments, And the banks all bought into it, and everybody bought into the mortgage, of getting a mortgage when they couldn't afford it. And it brought about, again, this financial crisis. All little bits and pieces. Again, with the oil prices going to $147 a barrel, and people buying into it, and everybody was saying at the time, oh, it's supply and demand, China and India. Well, the truth was, most Indian and Chinese ride bicycles. They don't drive Cadillacs. So it wasn't that at all. And now people understand it was pure speculation. And the governments are now trying to do something about that.
Michael, stand by. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Michael Levy is our special guest. His website is www.pointoflife.com. And Michael and I will be back on the other side of this news break as the X Zone continues live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada on Talkstar.
This is the X Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere. 24/7,
Michael Levy is my
365.
special guest. His website is www.pointoflife.com. And Michael has a new book out. It's entitled Paradise Graces a Simple Mind. It's available at all good bookstores. And Michael's website, which is, once again, www.pointoflife.com. So, Michael, what do we believe, or what is your opinion or your belief that the true meaning of life is?
Well, I don't have a belief as such. If it was a belief, then I wouldn't know whether it was wrong or right. Because, like I say, each belief system is handed down to us by other people or thoughts that we've gained. The point of life, the meaning of life, is that you're put here to enjoy your existence on Earth. It is that simple. We procreate and that sort of thing, other purposes. But there's no actual purpose per se. You're here to enjoy your existence. And it's fleeting. If you live to 100, it's a blink in cosmic terms. And like I said earlier, all the animal kingdom, and we're part of the animal kingdom, we're an animal after all live to enjoy that existence. And they have a flight-fright mentality. Either that they see a prey, they either run away from it or they fight and try and protect themselves. Well, we human beings should be more civilized than that. We should not be fighting one another, because we now know through reasoning and logic that nobody wins in the war, it's just somebody loses less. Everybody gets injured in it. So, but over the generations, for thousands of years, it seems we've not learned anything, because we're still fighting wars out in the Middle East and many different corners of the world. And indeed, in our own countries and in our own states, there's murders and there's crime going on. And if people would only stop and realize for a few minutes, there's nothing to be gained by crime. There's nothing to be gained. You might gain a revenge or something, but again, we're playing into these emotions. And what we've got to realize basically is that every human emotion on the negative side is pure illusionary, built up by this ego intellect that thinks it knows something and needs to defend itself. So once you build up an identity, you need to defend this identity against people with different belief systems and different points of view. That's why a belief system can be very dangerous. It can be used for good for humanity, with all the true spirituality that goes through it. But if it's used by intellectual meaning alone, then some nutcase comes along and starts to use it to try and master themselves over other people. And whether it be in a business or in a nation, chaos and devastation follow. So we need to get our own house in order. But while I'm saying all this, even while all this chaos is going on all around us, the good news is we don't have to buy into it. Because a free spirit won't buy into it. That is our true identity. We don't really have an identity as such. We're formless and we're nameless in our true essence of the energy that filters through our veins. And without that energy, there's no life. So our true life force is the energy that feeds us. It's the energy that feeds every cell in the body. And every cell in the body understands that energy. Otherwise, it couldn't absorb it and it couldn't live with it. The only part of us that tends to question it is the reason and logic within our brains and the ideas that we have that we need to live by or think we need to live by. So we've built up a society today, and we're living in a society. And this three-dimensional realm that we live in seems real enough. As Shakespeare said, if I prick me, do I not bleed? Yeah, it all seems real. And all the emotions that we have, and the psychologists and psychiatrists try to treat these emotions, and if they can't treat it just by relaxing people, then they'll give them medications to try and do it. Well, all that is putting a Band-Aid on something, and you can't douse a fire with a fire. You can't treat one intellectual nonsense with more intellectual nonsense that seems clever. It doesn't work, and we see all the reasons why it doesn't work. Again, Michael Jackson is a great prime example of he had spiritual leaders, he had doctors and everybody trying to help him sleep and get over certain stresses, and none of them could. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty together again.
If I was $400 million in debt, I'd have problems sleeping as well.
Well, he got into debt and did all that because of all the things that he thought he needed. It's part of a syndrome. And it's not. I'm not kind of picking on him. He's a nice, quiet guy who wanted to live simply. But he got swept away with all the fame and fortune and everything else that goes with it, as do many others. But us simple folk who haven't got that fame and fortune, and in many ways it's a blessing that we haven't got it, we've got just to live in and contend with the family, with friends, with jobs, try and find job security, and try and work out what is best for each person. And if you ask most people, and you gave them three selfish wishes, most people would ask for health, wealth, and happiness. In that order, I think. Or should I say happiness, health, then wealth. And the wealth will be obtained if we don't come under stress and don't get sick. So it's beholden on us to keep ourselves healthy. And if we keep the stress out of our lives, there's a very good chance that we won't get sick. So that's why it's very important to understand what joy means. J-O-Y means just obey yourself. And that is the true self that lives outside the identity zone, that doesn't have an identity and can't be intellectually explained. Because if you do intellectually, if I turn around to you and said, I'm a spiritual person, or I'm a child of God, then you're going to get some kind of image of what you think God is or what you think spirituality is, and you're going to buy into some guru's interpretation of that. And that doesn't work. Because if it did work, then the gurus themselves would be happy all the time, and they won't be needing to flog books and stuff to be able to have a happy life. They'll go out in the world and make a living for themselves without having to rely on book sales to make that living. They'll be proving it to themselves before they actually had to write books.
Yes, but when you talk to these people, the reason why they're writing these books is to share the knowledge that they have accumulated over the years, and to spread happiness and joy to people. I would imagine the exact same reason why you write books.
No, well, the fact that people have gone out and proven to themselves, if they're a teacher and they've for 30, 40 years have proven that that method is good, then that's fine. But if somebody just goes to university, gets a degree or something, and thinks that they can jump on the bandwagon and start writing self-help books, then it's the same as. And if it worked, then people won't be under stress. So obviously it doesn't work. And I don't know why I wrote these. I wrote these books basically to give people a choice, but I don't try and sell them to anybody, and I wouldn't try. And I would say to people, you don't need to read my books. You really don't. Ask questions to yourself. Before you go to bed at night, ask simple questions why things are happening to you that you don't particularly care for. Now, and there's a proviso with this. You've got to ask the question so that you can do good for other people, not for selfish gain. Because if you're only going to ask questions for how you can get rich in life or how you can just do it for yourself, then you're not going to get an authentic answer through. The real answers won't come through to you. But if you say, look, I want to help my family, help my friends, and help myself also to live a happy life and to have security of having enough money, how can I go about that? And how can I discern the falseness and the truth in life? And slowly but surely, you will find that that intelligence that you were born with will start to filter through, and you'll start to question what people have been telling you all your life. Because if what you're doing now is great and you're having a happy life, then if it ain't break, it doesn't need fixing. But if what you're doing isn't giving you what you desire out of life, then obviously some adjustment needs to be made. And there's only two things that we have in life. There's two choices that we have. There's not a million choices for us. There's only two choices. There's the choice of saying, do I follow the essence of the intelligence that I have in my life and be a server? Or do I think I've got free will to think for myself and follow that free will? And most people will say, yeah, I've got free will to think for myself, I'm going to follow that route. Well, if we do that, then we will come under stress, and we will have to rely on doctors, and the doctors themselves will have to rely on the medication to feed themselves, and they'll have their own syndromes that they'll make. However, if we step backwards and say, well, no, I really don't have free choice in that respect. I have the choice of following a multidimensional form of intelligence that doesn't need choice. It's got everything it needs. It's got everything it needs within itself and is self-contained to give us everything that we desire in life and everything that heart desires. And if I may, is it possible maybe to give you a little bit of a poem that perhaps maybe give a clearer indication? I've got a choice of two, and I'm kind of torn which one.
Why don't you read them both?
All right. I'll give one as a dedication to Michael Jackson.
All right.
My dedication to him is called Peaceful Slumber in the Forest of the Mind. Listen, how sweetly sings the breeze, merrily off trees. Whispering wonderment, the air quietly it does please. Nurturing souls, drifting to celestial splendor. Beauty unfolds, as into peaceful slumber, coils surrender. Castles in the sky, glowing columns of inspired inspiration. Silver shadows flowing through all generations. Warm cocoons of mortality, linked by silken threads. Webs of life, where comfort embeds. Serenely rests the head of time. Pillows puff by whisper of the sublime. Mellow moments spark a fusion sphere. Perfumed gardens alight. Dancing nymphs are near. O mindful forest flower, rivers many bridges cross. Branches lead with neurons, invisible flakes of frost. Tender is the night, spirits lovingly caress. Sleep well, my children, or where God will bless. a little meditative poem.
It's very relaxing.
It's relaxing, it's serene, and it helps people to understand freedom of mind. And another one which is called The Ambrosial Dreamkeeper. And this is a little bit deeper, and this is not a rhyming poem. Come raise the divine goblet of joy. Be in celestial delight as mystical brightness beams from an eternal heart that cannot be observed by flesh and blood. Choose wisdom's exquisite desire. Feast the loving soul's enchantment. Pour forth the kindness cup of mortal service. Time cannot stop its incessant gallop, but the mind's sacred dance can slow down for a while to listen to celestial silence, to the songs of spirit's melodic harmony. The ambrosial dreamkeeper sprinkles sweet orchid fragrance on starlight serenades. Love's devotion constantly fills humanity's empty vessels. And in that poem, there lies the secret of what I've been talking about this evening. That the more silence we can give our minds, the more simplicity it will absorb. And the more we can work out the answers that we need to find so that we can live authentically on earth to help our families, our friends, and our society succeed in a way that we're all meant to live. We won't succumb to the anguish of stress because our mind would be guarded against it.
Michael, stand by. You and I have to take our final break. Michael Levy is our special guest, X-Zone Nation. www.pointoflife.com. That's www.pointoflife.com. Still to come on tonight's show, Elizabeth Anglin is going to be my next guest when we come back from the news at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour. She is a psychic reader, scientific remote viewer, animal communicator, evidential spirit medium, and Reiki master. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone, live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
18 Sergeant Central. 19 Sergeant, check. Officers on the scene.
Hi, I'm Larry Lawson, host of Paranormal Stakeout. With over 36 years in law enforcement, I have learned a few things. The most important is the proper gathering and preservation of evidence is vital to putting the bad guy behind bars. It's no different in the world of paranormal investigation. Whether it's the search for the afterlife, cryptozoology, UFOs, and extraterrestrials, how we gather the evidence, preserve that evidence, and present it to a jury of our peers will make the ultimate difference in proving the existence of worlds and entities that are beyond our imagination. Join me, Larry Lawson, every week on Paranormal Stakeout when, along with my guests, we'll take a journey to prove with indisputable evidence what man has struggled to believe for centuries. Go to xzbn.net for the broadcast schedule and check me out at paranormalstakeout.com.
True healing must address 4 levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, for us to live joyful and productive lives. We tend to treat 3 of the 4, leaving the spiritual languishing. If you're tired of the same dysfunctional patterns cropping up in your life, Soul Balancing is for you. Trixie Phelps, owner and founder of Soul Balancing, is a naturally gifted energy healer trained in numerous esoteric forms, including shamanism. Trixie has created a powerful modality that safely and effectively clears your energetic field. A Soul Balancing session can remove interference, heal trauma, and restore your hope. Contact Trixie for a life-changing long-distance session today, www.soulbalancing.world.
Michael Levy is our special guest. His website is www.pointoflife.com. That's www.pointoflife.com. And he has a new book out, X-Zone Nation. It is entitled Paradise Graces a Simple Mind. It is available at all good bookstores. And his website, which again is www.pointoflife.com. How about debt-free living, Michael? How do we do that?
Well, don't crave things that you can't afford. And they may have advertised the media obviously want to suck you into buying things, but if you can't afford it, then wait. Just wait a while. Things go out of fashion quickly anyway in this day and age, and once you've got what you think you need, and you've gone and stretched yourself and you got into debt for it, well, the newness soon wears off it, and then you've got this mounted debt. So don't get into debt. Now, if you're already in debt, then try to start to pay it off just as quickly as you possibly can. There's nothing you really need other than the gifts that you've been given at birth. And you can see the sun rising in the morning. As long as you can feed yourself and have enough food and you've got enough clothes on your back, then you mentioned earlier on the $150 sneakers. Well, you really don't need those. If other people have got them and they think they need them, then fine. But you don't have to live up to other people's expectations. If you try and do that, if you try and live and you're copying other people, then your desires will overcome you and you'll get swamped in debt. And your life isn't going to be enjoyable. So just think before you make that purchase. And if you don't really need it,
don't buy it.
Don't buy it. It's as simple as that.
Michael, I want to thank you very much for joining us tonight. Pleasure having you on the show. Continued success, and we look forward to the next time when you visit us here in the X-Zone.
Pleasure, Rob. Whenever you want, I'm always available for you, and wish all your listeners well and to live in health and to live in joy. Thank you so much.
Take care, my friend. Good night.
All the best.
Michael Levy, www.pointoflife.com. That's www.pointoflife.com. Now, I want to come back from the news at the top of the hour at 6.5 minutes past. I will be joined by Elizabeth Anglin. She is a psychic reader, a scientific remote viewer, animal communicator, evidential spirit medium, and a Reiki master. She is up next with us here on the X-Zone. After all, this is truly a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern. And then the show is repeated in its entirety from 2 a.m. until 6 a.m. 1-877-528-8255 is our toll-free number. And I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news at 6.5 minutes past as we continue live and around the world right here on the Talkstar Radio Network in the X-Zone.